Hello and welcome to the Vanessa Erickson podcast. I'm Vanessa, your host, and I'm here to bring you meaningful conversations with influential leaders on data, AI, innovation, and leadership. In the month of March, the Financial Times published an article which stated that autonomous tech could massively disrupt a $4.6 trillion global market for road freight, which is already under pressure due to the shortage of truck drivers, the increasing cost of logistics, and the increasing parcels online. Today, we're going behind the scenes. It's the real talk of AI adoption, with none other than Jan Guhres, the head of AI domain at the TRATON Group. Welcome to all of you. Let's get started. Welcome, Jan. Thank you so much for coming here. Finally.
Yes.
Would you like to give our listeners and our viewers a little about, who you are and what you do today?
Yes. So I'm heading what we call the AI domain at TRATON. So TRATON is the owner of Scania in Sweden, but also for the owner of MAN in Germany and International in the US. And apart from that, I'm also a senior manager within shared IT in Scania, responsible for information management and integrations.
And we have worked together at Telia.
Telia, yes. Yes, we did. And a short stunt at Ericsson as well.
That's true.
Yeah, even longer back.
Longer back.
But at Telia we worked together for a while.
Yeah, and those were the fun days, weren't it?
Yes.
But now you're doing fun stuff.
Yes.
The last time we met, you were sharing a bit of all the work that is ahead of you, a little of the challenges. Let's not go into the challenges.
No, let's take the fun part.
Let's take the fun part. Would you like to share with us, where did the AI at Scania begin, and how have the leaders helped you push for that vision that you've had?
Yeah, so I'd say since Scania has sort of the autonomous trucks and a long engineering history, I think when AI hit 2 years ago, then Scania was quite interested early on, and we got the question from the executive board, okay, what should we do with AI? How should we handle this internally? And since then we have been working quite intensively trying to bring this out to all the Scania workers, all the white-collar workers, and integrate it in how we work and how we should change the way we're working. So it's everything from putting it into the trucks or into our services, into our processes that does not handle sort of the customer, what the customer sees, but also internally.
Nice.
So integrating it in the whole company.
I hear a lot, and I'm sure you do also, because it's like the AI hype just now going on. But so how do you measure business value?
Yeah, measuring business value is one of the hardest part, I'd say. So what we try to do is to measure use and measure. So depending on where you put it, but if you take sort of the internal processes, then we measure sort of how much time we save and sort of how much more quality you get into your services. But currently we are focusing a lot on adoption and reach. So Scania have somewhere above 25,000 white-collar workers, and our intent is to provide all of them with knowledge and tools to actually understand how they can use AI going forward, because our bet is that this will change how everyone works. It's a bit like when electricity hit, that this is something that will happen everywhere, and you need to figure out how and what is the best way to use it. And that's not something that we think one can do centrally, rather it's something that needs to be distributed because when everyone gets what this can do, then sort of the level of innovation rises tremendously. And that's what we're aiming for, that's what we're trying to achieve.
So a lot that is really happening. And I'm thinking, you said services in the factory, in the trucks. Could you share with us, one or more use cases, if you can?
Yeah. Not sure how much I can share, but there are of course things which are obvious where we are putting AI to use, and it also depends sort of how you classify AI. So I'd say we have a lot of the traditional AI, the machine learning part.
Yeah.
And for instance, our autonomous trucks, of course, is sort of a manifesto of AI because it's sort of an intelligent vehicle. But if you look on the pure Gen AI parts, that sort of has happened quite recently, we mostly put them into different internal services so that you can generate and automatically analyze things, such as when we do our manuals.
Yeah.
Then we, before, when there was a change somewhere in a component that we used or an error that we heard of, then we had to manually go into our manuals and find sort of where this word was described, and then we needed to redo certain parts of the manuals, and we needed to find everywhere that this sort of happened. Now we can automatically find those, so when there's an error reported or when there's a change happening, then we automatically find where it sits. We generate the change text, we insert it in all the languages that you want, and sort of we automatically do all of these changes that previously took hours to do, and now it's done in minutes.
Yeah. That is really proving its worth, right?
Yes. That's one of the simpler things that we do, and that is also proving its worth, as you said.
Of course. And then you said, you're implementing its AI, adopting it throughout the organization. I can imagine a lot of pushback from a traditional, engineering and manufacturing company. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, it's actually, I'd say in Scania, it's not as much pushback as you could think. And it also depends on sort of the wave of adoption, I'd say, because at first, the early adopters and the innovators, they are quite eager to get their hands on this, and they are, as we sort of try to give the tools to all our employees and have them innovate with the tools, well, we get the eager ones first. So in the start, we didn't have that at all. And rather the opposite, sort of how fast can you get this to us? How much can you help us? Where can I find more information? What am I allowed to do, and how am I allowed to do? So there was a lot of positive questions. Of course, there are also those who are more afraid of, okay, what does this mean for what I'm doing, and how will it change my current way of working? Will I still have my job left?
Yeah.
So we're seeing more and more of those questions as well. But since Scania has a tradition of not getting rid of people, rather reskilling them, we have a large focus on the reskilling part, or rather upskilling, I'd say. But sort of, so I don't meet that much fear, rather curiosity and sort of eagerness to understand and learn and do things with this. So.
That is amazing, because that is not what I hear from the other organizations, that I'm speaking to. Where do you think this eagerness at Scania comes from? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I think we have, from the top management, we have a rather strong support for starting to use AI, and that it's not it's not an option not to use it, and it's nothing to be afraid of. So we embrace it rather, and try to embrace the change and go through it.
I think that tells me that the leadership really needs to be out there evangelizing the right message, because I think I'm just trying to connect the pieces, because if the leadership doesn't go out and actually say, this is what we're doing, you don't need to fear because you're not going to lose your jobs, or we're going to have new roles coming out, I think that sets a kind of, stability in the organization and a calmness, right? Because otherwise you're worried about what exactly is happening. We don't know. Nobody's telling us anything. That's what you otherwise hear on the other side.
Yeah.
So well done, Scania. Well done.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then the leadership. So if, what do you think is the leadership needs to have? What are the qualities? And I know now you're a humble guy and you don't want to talk about leadership. Yeah, but sorry, we're going to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, what does the leadership need? I mean, first of all, there needs to be a vision on sort of how do we want to embrace this and where do we want to take it, and sort of really seeing the possibilities, not having all the answers because that's impossible, but seeing the possibilities and letting people explore. I think we have the benefit of being a very profitable company, so we can allow for a bit of slack and use that slack to innovate and evaluate new things. So that's happening all the time in all parts of the company. And I think sort of the benefit here with the leadership that we have that sort of communicates that this is important and want to have the always the improved way of working and sort of continuous improvements as we sort of always say. It's a part of the lean production, but it's also part of everything that we do in all administration tasks. I'd say there's a sort of backside to that as well, that sort of since we are very used to doing small changes all the time, sometimes now when we come with AI, then we are required to do large steps as well. And we're not as used to that. So we're a bit, we're not as good at doing those things. And then it sort of, again, helps that there's a strong commitment from the executive board that this is something that we want to do.
Yeah. Could you elaborate a little on the big steps? I don't get, what do you mean with the big steps?
So for instance, when you do small tweaks all the time, it's not sort of evident that sort of introducing a new technique or a new tool actually will take the larger step. So why invest in this when you can sort of rather tweak your process a little bit every time? You can be 1% faster every year, but now you have actually the possibility by using these tools to completely change your whole process, as I sort of explained with the manuals that we do.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not a small tweak. No. They are getting lots of improvements and lots of speed in that sort of change process. So all of a sudden they can sort of go through their backlog in a very short period of time. Yeah. So what do they do with this extra time, and sort of how do we handle that? And what does it mean for us as an organization having these kind of possibilities? So we're not used to that. We're used to getting a few percentage better all the time. But now we're sort of getting much better.
I can already see the cost savings here, right?
Yes. Yeah.
It's so cool.
Yeah, but then again, it's not cost savings until you actually get the value out of those hours that you saved. And that's what I mean. We're not used to, okay, so what do we do with this time? Where do we put that into action? What else should we do? That's what we are not sort of really used to handling. So we need to figure that out. Yeah.
But what an interesting journey. What an interesting journey. Thank you. If we go back into the whole adoption, you said resistance is not so big. At least what I hear you say, the adopters are out there waiting, eager to know how to get moving with AI. What about the challenges? I mean, where is the challenge? Because there would be some challenges in the organization, right? Is it budgets? Is it, it's like, what is the biggest challenge that you have?
Yeah, there are challenges, of course. I mean, there were, in the beginning, there were a lot of challenges on the sort of legal side. What do we dare to do? What about the IP? Sort of, do we still own things that we generate? What do we dare to do not to violate any legislation? And sort of, So there was a lot of questions, and we have had a lot of good cooperation from the IT side with compliance, legal, and sort of those parts of the organization as well. And they were also quite eager to get on board and understand and start using. So that was really fruitful. So I'd say in the beginning that was sort of the challenge. Now when you sort of come to the second level where I think we are right now, then budget and time and all of these things also come into play, because I mean it's one thing getting the budget and invest in the license, but that's the small part, because then the training needs to start. And I mean, with the AI Act, with the European AI Act coming into force, or it actually happened earlier this year, then you're obliged to get everyone who will use AI up in their literacy training. So you need to provide something for them so that they are more educated in what they should do and shouldn't do. And that takes time.
Yeah.
And as I said, we have 25,000 white-collar workers, and we want to equip all of them with this knowledge and these tools. So I say the training part and sort of the understanding part is the larger, even if right now we're of course looking at the cost for all the licenses. But,
yeah.
So yes, those are challenges. But again, sort of we've seen, since we've taken this stepwise, I mean, we've done it with pilots. So we've introduced a lot of tools by first doing a pilot with a small set of users, understanding what sort of are the advantages of this tool. Then we expand the pilot to something bigger, and eventually we release it in general availability. By doing that, we've also overcome some of the challenges that we've seen, and also we could use the data that we have to convince our management and our sort of organizations that this investment is worth it. And we've done that together with universities. So we had a good cooperation together with Stockholm School of Economics, for instance, for one of these studies. And sort of they could use our data for research, and we could get their input on the value we actually create. So it's been very beneficial partnerships.
Yeah. And I had Mats Nordlund here from AI Sweden, and he said, I mean, you know, it's really cool that we're working with universities because they are the fastest adopters, the next generation, as we know from our children as well.
Yes.
Yes. I had another question, because when you talk about data, how has the data strategy helped in the whole success of the AI adoption?
Yeah, that's also a good thing. That at Scania we actually did have already in place the data strategy that all data needs to be shared. So there's no sort of holding back on sharing your data within Scania. And of course, when you look into different uses of AI, the model is one thing, but sort of what's really important is the data you feed the model with.
Yes.
And since we had this policy in place already, and we already had been through that kind of what we call the information management journey, then we were all set when the tools were ready. So I think that's also an important part of the puzzle that we're seeing.
And how do you manage then GDPR for, you know, because it's different rules in every country and region. How does that overall picture look like?
That's a very complex picture.
Yes, I can imagine.
It is. But since we had the data sharing in place already, there already was a lot to sort of benefit from when it comes to GDPR and when it comes to similar rules. Currently, we are not going all the way in all the countries due to this. Yeah. So within EU, we are quite confident in what we dare to do and so on. We don't have any business as Scania, TRATON has, but not as Scania in US. So the Scania tools are available for Scania mostly in Europe. We are expanding to South America and to Asia as well, but at a slower pace, just as you say, because we need to make sure that all the legislation and that we are in control of what we dare to do and how we dare to do it.
And I know that that is a very complex picture also because of my time at Zensact, where, you know, for self-driving cars, collecting all that data, making sense of it. I know of some of the challenges, so that's why that picture must be really complex.
Yes.
Yes.
But when you look at it from a TRATON level, then you have a completely different set of levers to play with. Then we actually can utilize that we have a brand in the US where the legislation looks differently, where we can put some experiments in place. Then you can sort of carry that result back into all of the TRATON companies and use that to sort of develop our processes and our tools even further in all the brands. So there's a huge gain being had by sort of having all the brands dispersed as they are and being separate legal entities. So it's we're trying to use that to our advantage.
Yeah, because those must be some of the low-hanging fruits, right? When you've already done all the work.
Yes.
Yeah. Jan, I'm just a bit curious because you said you've got IT to work with you. So where is your organization? Is it with the business, with the digital organization? Where are you located at TRATON?
Yeah, we're located in IT.
In IT.
Yeah, but our part of IT is enabling function.
Yeah.
So we are trying to enable Scania. We're not sort of necessarily building the competencies and everything within IT, but rather we're facing outwards and trying to engage with everyone outside, also within IT, of course. But so we're trying to engage a lot with other parts of Scania. So I'd say sort of one of our we've had a lot of partnerships with R&D, of course, since they are also a large part of the community that wants to start using this. So if you look at sort of how licenses and users are dispersed, then R&D is actually the larger part and IT is the second largest. And then it's sort of more evenly distributed within the organization and all the functions that we have. And currently we see that other parts are rising as a percentage because I think the early adopters were quite often in either R&D or IT, and now we see the other units catching up when the sort of the first movers are not alone in there anymore. Now the second movers are starting to come in as well.
So what's a kind of timeline you see for everybody being on the same page, and or how do you see that? Is it already 50% of everybody is AI?
No, not really. So as I said, we have 25,000 white-collar workers worldwide, and we're aiming to reach about half of them during the year. And then I'd say in a year or maybe two, then we should have reached all of them. So that's the ambition.
Yeah, that sounds really wonderful. I'm thinking you must have had an aha moment with AI.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Not sure, but I think sort of the interesting moment was when ChatGPT was released. There's a lot of hype happening before that release.
Yeah.
And when it happened, there were a few of us who actually was waiting for it, trying it out the first hours, really happy to share what happened. And when we realized, then we started making plans. So this will happen. I think that was one of the really fun moments because all of us involved in data and AI, as sort of both of us has been for many, many years. I mean, there's always been this sort of promise to actually reach everyone with the benefits of using data and analytics and so on. And all of a sudden you were sitting there and you were realizing maybe this is it. Maybe this is the tool. Now anyone can start using data as it was intended.
As it was intended, right. Yeah. Because it made our journey so much easier, right?
Yes.
To explain how data is so critical, because that's what, it's fueling AI as well today. And I mean, that is also where we're getting the, understanding what data are we feeding the AI? Do we have biases in our data? How are we working with it?
Yeah, exactly. All of those questions, and sort of it's much more easy to understand when you can interact with the data in such an easy way. You ask your questions, you get an answer, and you can sort of ask the follow-up questions, and it sort of understands. It doesn't understand, but it sort of gives the impression of understanding your area. And I think that helped for a lot of people.
Yeah. So, fun question. Where do you think in the next 5 years, where are we going to be? Yes.
Yeah. I think that's a really, really hard question. I'm trying to say whenever we speak to new users or new parts of the business, and they say, well, yeah, we want to hear the new things. And I say, what exactly do you mean with new things? Because when in our business, when someone say new, they mean, okay, something which is not older than sort of 7 days. Because that's new. Things happen over the weekends, and we often joke about that in our core team, that sort of, okay, what happened during the weekend? Because the sort of game plan is new every Monday. So where we will be in a few years' time, I think that's really, really hard to say. Everything is happening very fast. I think sort of what I can see is that autonomous vehicles no longer only means the cars that are self-driving. I think a lot will happen in that space. But now we're also seeing sort of drones that carry people that are autonomous. And those sort of experiments are happening mostly in Asia, in China. What will that mean for transport? I mean, Scania is betting on what we call the sustainable transport ecosystem, saying that, okay, we want to help out not only with producing vehicles that can carry goods, but we want to help out in the whole chain of transporting goods and people. And what does that mean? It probably means we cannot stay in the safe zone of trucks and buses anymore. We need to figure out, okay, what more in the whole ecosystem of transport is it that we can help out with? And of course, help us be more profitable through. But so I think we'll see a lot of change in the next 5 years. Yeah. But not completely sure where.
Wow, that is a huge vision and ambition. And yes, of course, because nothing stays forever, right?
No.
You have to go to the next and the next and the next.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Jan.
Yeah.
And thank you for listening and watching us. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. And if you haven't subscribed, again, what are you waiting for? Bye for now.
If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe, and stay tuned for more.